Ucha, welcome to the chat. It wasn't supposed to start. It's supposed to be a premiere, so I'm not sure why this video started. But we're going to be doing a permaculture video. I entered into this class. What's her name is Brandy Hall, and she's gonna share a lot about permaculture, about learn about permaculture with us. And so I'm gonna share with y'all. It was a free class, and so I'm gonna bring y'all on for this journey. And let's see. I'm trying to see if it says I'm on live or not right now. So it wasn't supposed to be live quite yet, but oh, I do say we live. All right. All right. So it do say we live. So I don't know. I wish I could turn the camera off. I'm gonna turn the mic off. I'm gonna turn the mic off for a bit, and then once the class gets started, I'm going to share with y'all. Green screen. Here we go. Here we go. So this is so this is what this is about. This is the wonderful woman who's going to be hosting this class, and yeah, I'm gonna share with y'all.
We have Liz here saying she's going to be moderating. So any questions that come up during the webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat there. We have it set so that she and I can see everything getting done. So much going on. So feel free to when we get to that portion of the class. And if you have any trouble, just a quick text tweet, if you have any trouble, if the video audio is weird, we found that it's really well to come back in, or try switching browsers. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of housekeeping, so let's go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone, my name is Brandy Hall. I'm the founder and managing director of Shades of Green Permaculture. And we are a regenerative landscape design, build, and education firm. We're located here in Atlanta, Georgia. And our team helps people transition conventional landscapes into biodiverse and nourishing ecosystems. So a little bit more about me. I founded Shades of Green in 2008. So we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. And now we're a team of about 25 people, and we've worked with over 1,000 clients and thousands of students in our online programs. So I'm really passionate about leading a purpose-driven business. My roots are in building. I have a general contractor's license. That's how I started getting into this. And nearly 2 decades of experience in building off-grid water systems, landscape construction, and integrated farming systems. So, yeah. For those of you that are completely new to this, you might be asking, first and foremost, what is permaculture? So I figured we'd start there, and then we can dive into some of the nitty-gritty. So permaculture, this is my favorite definition, is an ethical design science and methodology that integrates human activity with natural surroundings so we can create highly efficient, self-regenerating ecosystems that yield food and fiber and medicine and fuel and habitat and beauty, and all kinds of things. And then the pioneers said, it's all alive, it's all intelligent, it's all connected. And that's really the lens through which we look at landscapes when we're designing. So, the agenda for today. So first we're going to start with a virtual site walk of a recent project. I've got a few videos that I'm going to show, and I finally figured out how to do the audio for those, so I think we should be good. Took me a couple tries. And then we're going to talk about how you can do this in your own yard. So that's been a huge question that's come in. So I'm devoting a little bit of the time from this presentation to talk about how you can get started in your own yard. And then once I get through that, we'll get into the Q&A session. So This will include previously submitted questions and live questions from the chat as time allows. So there will be about 15-20 minutes or so for questions. So keep them coming in. We'll get into those. Okay, so just a couple of watching tips. Remove distractions, close your extra tabs, take notes, ask questions, and stay to the end because I have a surprise for everybody who's here. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to start talking about the first pillar of a regenerative landscape. And in my work with Shades of Green, we've really synthesized all of the things that we do into 3 pillars of a regenerative landscape. So we're just really going to dive into the first one today, and that's really all about water. So this has been a major topic recently. You know, we have intense floods. We're watching it on the news right now. We have insane droughts and all of these things in between. So managing water as a resource to rehydrate soils, to reduce irrigation, and to restore the water cycle is really the foundation of every design that we do. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about a project where we really focus intensively on the water. So these are some of the before and the before photos and the design directive. So you can see through the photos here, you know, I'll speak to it a little bit more specifically in the video that I'll go into next. But basically what's happening here is the road sits about 6 or 7 feet above the elevation of the house. And so the whole front yard is sloping toward the house. It's sloping north. And partially what's going on is the whole watershed drains to the low spot in the road, which is near where this house is, and the storm drain is not in the right spot on the street. So what ends up happening is the rain was jumping the curb in heavy rains, completely flooding their downstairs of their house. So they had some drainage work put in. They put in a couple of grate drains and creek beds to try to move the water, but it was not quite enough to really handle what was happening. And it was still taking with it a lot of soil, causing a lot of erosion, as you can see in that top right picture. You know, the foundation near the corner of the porch is getting undermined, and, you know, a lot of soil loss kind of going over this tall retaining wall to the side of the house. So one of the things that we wanted to do was reduce the amount of lawn, first and foremost, because lawn, turf grass specifically, when it's mown, you know, less than 3 inches, it's mown regularly, it has what they call a runoff coefficient, which is the amount of water that hits the surface, how much of that runs off. It's an 85% runoff coefficient. So the lawn wasn't really doing much for absorbing or helping to manage the water, right? Instead, it's sort of like a slick surface, just keep on going down towards the house. So a big directive of the design was to take out as much lawn as possible while still maintaining that open space feeling. And then to replace the lawn with, you know, some water infrastructure, but really focusing heavily on native perennials and grasses. Okay, so I'm going to get into a video here. Let's see if I can do it correctly this time. Describing it like it's been. Yep, exactly. Like, let's talk about the site, how it was before. Okay, so what used to happen here is the road, as you can see, kind of like to my left here, coming on downhill, and there's a storm drain that way, but it's actually not in the lowest part of the road. So what was happening is, instead of the water making its way to the storm drain, it's making its way to their basement. And so they had some drainage work done to start a while ago, a different company, and that company put in these drain boxes, which are basically concrete drop inlets with a dome grate on top, and they go to a 6-inch pipe. But what was happening is the water wasn't actually getting into those drains, because it only had a pretty narrow mouth right here to go to the drain, and the water, you know, some of it was going there, but a lot of it was continuing to wash down, and then there was a creek bed that went to the next drain down below, But again, the water wasn't really making its way there the way that it needed to. So what we did to solve the drainage issue is we made a very long rain line right here. So there's a berm that I'll walk on. Walking on the berm. So this is a level berm right here. It's planted with drier species like echinacea that's still in bloom, which is amazing because it's almost Thanksgiving. Beautiful. And this, between the curb and the berm, is a rain garden. It's about 2.5 feet deep. It's filled with recycled concrete gravel and engineered soil with units of compost and sand. It's got a little bit of river rock right around the drain just to keep it from getting the soil getting washed into it. And then it's planted with beautiful things like this muley grass, you can see, irises, some native irises, some lobelia, which is sprouting again, which is wild, and echinacea. There's some black-eyed Susans in here, a bunch of beautiful plants. And like I said, we're in the end of fall right now, still looking very lush because we've had an unseasonably warm fall, or maybe more seasonably warm. Yeah. Anyway, the water gets into this pipe. If for some reason the pipe is clogged or it is too inundated, we've got hurricane-force rain coming through Atlanta periodically now. If that pipe can't handle the amount of water, the secondary backup to this is this water would overflow the berm, it would level the slope down, and make its way here. So there's actually a very slight berm that starts right here. Oh yeah, you can see it. This is part of the rain garden, and it goes all the way around and over toward that lemongrass at the corner of the house. So I'll walk next to the berm. This whole thing is a berm. And it's actually all level with itself, even though it looks like it's raising here, it's because the grade is going down. So all level berm. And it curves around. You get a really nice view of it here. It curves around. There's some wild strawberry, some creeping Jenny on the berm itself. And then what happens here is we've got this drain, this secondary drain. We've got this secondary drain here. And if the water were to seep flow across the upper berm, it would be caught by this lower berm, which snakes up to the grass, and force the water into this rain garden. This rain garden is about 2.5 feet deep. Pretty big, you can see. It's sizable. It's about, I think, 20 feet wide by 10 or 15 feet wide this way. And it's filled with engineered soil. I don't think this one has gravel in it because we just did a base of engineered soil. So we'd have a lot of pervious growing material. The vision here was we wanted it to really feel like a garden bed, not to be an obvious rain garden. And so this fills with water? Yeah, so in a super duper heavy rain, if the first one gets inundated, this fills with water. And it would rise up to the level of the berm, which here comes to about right here. So it's, this would be the limiting factor, the flow rate on this pipe. It goes to a 6-inch pipe, which joins with the upper one and then runs to the back. And there's more rain gardens down below. But if this were to fill up, it would have to rise to a certain level to be able to get into this pipe here. So the water would have to be, at least here, roughly. So it's like, 6 inches of water in this whole thing before it even starts entering the pipe. And if the flow rate on this pipe were ever constricted, like it's covered with leaves, or it's such a torrential downpour that the flow rate, it'd have to be really massive downpour for this 6-inch pipe not to be able to convey that much water. But when you're talking about water, it's really a game of redundancy. And especially when you're on a slope like this where everything, the whole town, the whole street's stormwater is coming to their basement is what was happening before. So we really wanted to go big on this water system just to make sure that it wasn't actually entering their house. And it's given ample opportunity in both rain gardens to sink into the soil and hydrate all of the plantings before it ever goes into the backyard. So, yeah, you can see it's planted with tons of iris, more echinacea, black-eyed Susan, some ground covers.
And so these plants can withstand just like being in 6 inches of water.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, it's been raining for 24 hours here. It just stopped a few minutes ago, but it's not holding any water because the soil below it is now able to infiltrate that water. So the time where you would see it holding water is if the perk rate of the soil, like if the soil is so saturated that it's slowly percolating. And then that's the point where it would start entering the thing. So that happens when we're in like really severe rain, where, especially in Georgia, where we have beautiful clay that doesn't absorb water very quickly. That'll get saturated and then it'll flow into the pipe. But that'll happen less and less as a rain garden establishes because all of these species, specifically the black-eyed Susans and the echinaceas, the Joe Tidy, the muley grasses, those are all species that have really deep root systems that get into that clay layer below the rain garden and they start to break it up. And that's places where more and more water can infiltrate. So it went from being a total problem where the water was just washing from their whole neighborhood basically to their basement to strategically sort of dancing the water down the slope, allowing it to sink into the soil before it ever even goes anywhere else on their property or eventually off. Okay. I'm going to go back here. And the next video that I'm going to share, let me slide here. Okay, so that was in November of 2022. So you could see from this one, we started the project in September 2020. And then we started the design work in September 2020, and then we did the installation in early 2021, maybe mid-2021, and then the site walk that I did, this recording of it, was from November 2022. So now I'm going to show you, this is a year later, this is a recent rain event that we had. And this was a 9-inch-per-hour rain event, so a massive, massive downpour. And I want to show you what happened. And this was really incredible because the client took video of what was happening in their neighbor's yard who didn't do this type of drainage work, this type of rain garden work, and then what was happening in his yard side by side during the exact same rain event. So we're going to watch those now. An absurd amount of water. Basically, you can see in the color of the water, it's carrying with it so much soil, so much clay, so much sediment, and that's all running into the creeks and the rivers down below at the bottom of this watershed. It's undercutting the fence, it's undercutting the driveway, it's causing massive amounts of erosion. They've had a lot of work done with retaining walls and French drains and other things, but those types of solutions don't necessarily work for this volume of water, as you can see. So I'm going to show you now the neighbor, or the client's yard in the same rain event.
Okay, shades of green. This is the fullest it's ever been. And that far drain that you guys left in place, I was skeptical of, but I was wrong because it's sucking in water. And you guys called this like over I don't even know, 2 years ago almost now. You said that we would need that, and I was skeptical, and I was wrong, and you were right. It's taking on water right now. Next door, it's a total torrent, like flooding torrent. Look at this. But your stuff, look, your stuff in the front, happy plant, happy grass. And this thing has never ever filled before, but it did now. Excellent work, mind-blowing actually, really well done. Totally worth it. Send anyone over to our house that you want to talk to us, and I'll tell them the same thing.
Love a good unsolicited video from a client. So, okay, for those of y'all that are having trouble seeing the video, I'm not sure, because a lot of people are saying that they were able to see it and then others are not. So, it will be in the replay if you want to rewatch it. Yeah, so in that particular site, you know, and I want to kind of explain the math of the watershed here. So on a single residential roof, on 1,000 square feet of impervious surface, there is roughly 622 gallons of water that runs off. So the average roof in Atlanta is about 2,000 square feet. So in a 1-inch rain, we have 1,200 gallons of water that runs off. And here, you're looking at a watershed that is between 50 and 60 houses that are all draining to driveways, which are another like 3,000-4,000 square feet, right? That are also draining to all of the road, and all of that road is running to the client's house. And so in this particular situation, you have a 9-inch rain, even on 1,000 square feet of roof, or an average house, 2,000 square feet of roof, you're looking at like 10,000 gallons of water that's running off in this single rain event. So it's a massive amount. And this was the only time he had ever seen the lower rain garden actually fill with water. I'm going to go back to my presentation here, which is just absolutely, yeah, it looks like a swimming pool in the yard. Exactly. And that's an immense amount of water that's coming in. And so through doing really elegant solutions, like I was describing in the video, of slowing the water down, you know, this is the first pillar. Slow the water down, allow it to sink in, allow it to hydrate soils, build your soil's capacity to hold more water in rain events. And that's happening through, you know, additional organic material. It's happening through the deep-rooted plants that are breaking up that clay, the subsoil layer, and all of the holes that the root tips make. Those are places where water can infiltrate. All of those things combined really allow the water to slow down and be treated as a resource and actually help your landscape rather than what we see in the neighbor's video, where it's just, you know, massive amounts of erosion. They're constantly having to pay to get the creek bed redone along the driveway. There's so much that's happening there because the water is not able to flow and sink. So one of the questions, where do the gutters go? And where do the drains go? So the gutters all get piped and they go to the rain gardens in the backyard. And then that big drain pipe goes to the backyard and then ultimately flows through a level spreader, which takes the concentrated flow of water and disperses it. So it doesn't have the erosive force, and it goes through the forest and ultimately finds its way down to the creek. So a lot of folks, a huge question that came in when we've been putting out the call for questions for this session for the past couple of weeks, and we've gotten hundreds of questions that came in. And a huge one that's come in is, how do I do this? How do I do this in my own yard? What do I need to do? You know, we have a lot of people that work with us. I've seen a few mentioned in the comments here that are clients of ours. But we have a limited capacity, and we're here in Atlanta, and we don't work in California or Idaho or New Hampshire or all these places where we have students. And so one of the things that we've really aimed to do in the last few years is to expand and empower people with these tools way beyond our geographic footprint. And one of the things you might be thinking is, okay, great, that's not the situation that I'm in my yard. And so one of the things I wanted to touch on is permaculture is the ethical design science to think of how we as humans integrate with the landscapes around us. But it can look very different depending on the goals of the homeowner or of the steward of the land. So, it might be like in this top left picture where the main goal is to grow food and you have a lot of vegetables and you have a lot of raised beds or, a number of different ways of growing food, trees, perennials, nuts, berries, all kinds of things. Or in this top right picture, this is a client who's in an HOA who we took out thousands of square feet of turf grass in their yard and we replaced it with a beautiful native meadow. And we went through a process of educating with the HOA, showing them the plans that we were coming, getting their buy-in, and it's become like a showpiece within the neighborhood. And a lot of neighbors are catching on and wanting to do something similar. And you can see how incredibly gorgeous it is. In the bottom right photo, this is a client of ours who's a renowned herbalist. So her landscape, it has both more like wet shade and dry full sun. And in her landscape, she's growing 95% of the things that she uses within her herbal apothecary. So everything in her landscape is multifunctional, multi-purpose. An HOA is a homeowners association. I saw that question come in. And then in the bottom right photo, in the bottom photo, that's a full shade garden where they really wanted to focus on growing native plants and creating bird sanctuary, bird habitat. And then the bottom left photo where you see the table with the chairs, this is a local interior designer who is renowned for her design work. And so what was interesting about this project is I think oftentimes when people hear permaculture, they automatically think this has got to be kind of messy, it's got to be made out of all like pallets and salvaged things and tarps. I don't know. I've heard some like really crazy things about what people think permaculture has to look like. And what I love about this project is that it's very aesthetically driven, and it also very much aligns with the principles of the 3 pillars of a regenerative landscape. So we're working with water through, in this patio, it's a pervious patio. So it's sinking the water in, it has a gravel base, nothing's running off. There's tons of native and useful plants as the plant palette creates bird habitat, grows food, grows medicine, all of these things. And then really working to build the soils. That's the 3rd pillar of a regenerative landscape, is really working to build soils and close waste streams so you're keeping biomass on your landscape to help to build soil fertility. So for those of you that do want to go deeper, I'm just going to tell you about our online course because we've had a lot of questions about it. And I'll go through kind of what it entails, and then very soon I will get to the Q&A session. So keep dropping your questions here. I see a lot of great questions. Liz is capturing them all, and I'll get through as many as I possibly can. But the Regenerative Backyard Blueprint, this is our comprehensive online course. I used to teach an in-person permaculture design certification. And it's a 72-hour course, and it's extremely theory-heavy, which is one of the things I didn't love about teaching it. Because I felt like oftentimes students would leave with a lot of theory, and even though we would do a lot of hands-on things, trying to synthesize it, okay, but how does this actually fit in my yard? How does this fit at a residential scale type of project? What do I do? That was a big thread. And so this is why I created Regenerative Backyard Blueprint, because I wanted to take the theory out of it and give you the actual steps that we use every single day with our own clients. So this walks through the design process, start to finish, of mapping your existing conditions, understanding all of the different elements of a landscape, like hardscaping, water, soil, plants, how to put those all together, and then how to actually build it. So this can be, like I was mentioning before, really wanting to expand the geographic footprint and be able to serve clients that are outside of our 15-mile radius where we can actually work, was another big reason for creating this course. So this can be applied to any climate, any region, any budget, and any experience level. And let me go through what it entails. So there's 7 modules as part of RDB. The first is the climate context. So this is really looking at what is a regenerative landscape, what are some problems with conventional landscaping decisions. Let's make a project roadmap. Let's understand values-aligned gardening. What are your values and how are you going to implement those in your gardening? The second module is all about planning. So this is the place where we clarify your goals. We really understand what is it that you're hoping to gain in your landscape. How do you want to use your landscape? What do you want to grow? What kind of foods do you like? What are the things that you really value? Do you like bird watching? Do you like butterflies? Do you have grandchildren? Kind of all of these things. And then I'll help you scale your base map, make an actual scaled map of your property using free resources that you can find on the internet. I'll show you how. And then I'll teach you how to actually go through your landscape and map out your existing conditions and understand what those conditions mean so that you can define your priorities and start working on a plan. So then the third module is all about the built environment. So when I was showing that project that was, very aesthetically driven, this is really understanding what are your aesthetics and what are the functionalities that you need within your landscape. So are you trying to have gathering space? We've had clients that want to do a pump track because their child was really into mountain biking. We've had clients that want to grow a ton of food, that want to keep chickens, that have natural play areas. There's so many things that can happen within a landscape. So understanding what functions and essential needs you have are really important. And then also understanding the eco-friendly hardscape material options and how you can still work with the water, work with the soil, and work with the plants, even if you're doing a lot of built elements. And my daughter is here with me, and she's dragging something across the floor, so apologies. It's loud. Okay, the fourth module is really diving deep into managing water as a resource. So this is diagnosing drainage issues, designing for drought resistance, because just as much as we get so much water one year, we have a huge lack of water another year. So designing for that on the front end is really helpful. And I know we have tons of students that are in very dry climates, like the high deserts of New Mexico or Arizona or, middle Texas. And we have some that are in like a very fluctuating climates where, you have very intense dry season, like in Northern California, but then also a wet season. So you could apply the principles of managing the water as a resource in any of those types of climates or conditions. And then partially you use different types of earthworks, understanding the earthworks, the options that you have, and how each one serves a different goal. Once you know what the conditions are in your site, then you can understand which type of earthworks are going to help you to achieve the goals that you have. And then finally, we go really deep into rainwater harvesting. So how to size rainwater tanks, types of pumps, plumbing plans, all of the things that you need to know to make it functional. And then we get into Module 5, which is soil building strategy. So this has everything from different types of amendment techniques that you might have for different plant communities you have, choosing different plants for soil health, like using plants to augment nutrients in your landscape, types of composting, how to prepare planting beds, all of these things. And then the 6th module is all about plant community design. So this is the really fun module. This has everything from essential plant knowledge, where to source hard-to-find plants, how to remove invasive species without using herbicides and pesticides, and then how to pick what type of veggie gardening method really makes the most sense. And then the last module is about putting it all together. So this is where you draw a master plan, you have implementation tools, like the rainwater harvesting calculator, or how to, calculators for figuring out the number of plants that you need, or the amount of mulch that you need. And then also understanding how to tend to your garden on an ongoing basis. What does the maintenance of one of these types of gardens really look like? What can you expect? And then I threw in a bunch of additional things that I think are really important because we're not in person anymore, strategically, so that we can work with students in California and Idaho and New Hampshire and all over the country. I put in a few different bonuses, what I call bonuses. So things like live coaching. So we do monthly live coaching calls with all the students. This is an opportunity where you can share really specific questions that you're having around your project. You can share screens and photos and videos, and I'll answer your questions live. The Temperate Climate Plant Guide, I saw a question come in here about how to pick the right plants. So this guide is all about trees, shrubs, vines that work well in any zone between 5 to 10. And then also perennial polycultures for different types of ecotypes. So might have we have wet shade all the way to full dry sun, and all the different types of plant combinations that you could use therein. And then the third one is our construction diagrams. So these are actually the diagrams that we use in the field for our teams when we're training on how we construct all of the different elements that I talk about throughout the entire course, from hardscaping, water, plantings, all of these things. And then we do 7 virtual site visits, so similar to the one that you saw today, where we go through real-life examples. I explain what we did, why we did it, and how you can do it as well, so that you can apply it to your own site conditions. I chose sites specifically that have really difficult or, different types of conditions that you might also experience, like a steep slope or full shade or full sun, major drainage issues, taking out lawn, all kinds of things. And then we have a community forum. So this is our online community exclusively for students, so you can just get any of your questions answered anytime you're stuck. It's me monitoring it and responding regularly. So that is the community forum. And then also the Managing Mosquitoes Naturally course. So this is a huge question that comes up, especially in conjunction with water, is how do you work with mosquitoes? And if you have dense vegetation. So this course goes all into how to work with mosquitoes naturally, so you don't need any poisonous or harmful pesticides. And then the rainwater calculator, which I was talking about a little bit earlier. So this is a calculator that I built so that you can size cisterns and earthworks appropriately and know that you're maximizing the amount of water you can save so that you can weather times of drought. So all of these things together would be over $5,600 value. So we've got RDB, we've got live coaching, the plant guide, construction diagrams, the site visits, the community forum, managing mosquitoes naturally, the rainwater calculator. And if you were going to work with us one-on-one to help design and build your landscape, it would easily be double that. We have a project minimum of about $10,000. But with RDB, you get lifetime access to the program and daily access to me inside of the community, and it's far from a 5-figure investment. So it definitely does not cost that. Oh, and then this is the surprise. And I'm about to get into the Q&A, so thank you so much for your patience in this. So I just launched a class called Hand-Drawn Landscapes. It hasn't gone live to the general public yet. But today, if while we're live, you decide you want to sign up for RDB, you'll get access to this class that has not even been released yet for free. So this is a comprehensive drafting and rendering course so that you can create gorgeous professional quality landscape designs. People ask us all the time how we make these beautiful drawings, and this class is all about how you do it. So these are the payment options. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I wanted to explain how you can do this in your own yard. But we have 2 payment options. We have a free payment plan or a one-time payment. And if you go over to the offers tab up here near the chat, there's a link there and it'll take you to the page. If you want to enroll, you would just click enroll now, select your payment option, and it'll email everything you need once you register. Okay. So I want you to just think about where you could be just a couple of months from now doing this in your own yard and the kind of impact that has. One of the things that's the most heartening to me in working with so many students, like we have a student in Seattle right now who implemented RDB over the last year and has taken out her entire front yard, built a little nursery plant, like to grow plants out in the soil in an area where she wasn't ready to tackle yet, took out all of her grass, put in beautiful like fruiting and flowering and perennial and native plants. And now she's hosting a neighborhood garden tour where she's going to be helping people to try to do that in their own yards and get them very inspired. So it's that kind of thing that really just makes me so excited for working with students and the implications of you learning this and how that ripples out through your communities and the impact that we collectively can have together because of that. And the course is go at your own pace. You have lifetime access to all of the materials, all of the coaching for as long as I offer them. So you can really, I know life is always living. So you can always just revisit it. We have students that have been kind of slowly plugging away at it for the last few years since we launched it. And we have some that dive right in and just go for it. So everything in between. So I'm going to turn this off for a second. And that's my face. Here's my face. Yeah, so I am going to dive into some of the questions now. Q&A starts now. Thank you so much for your attention through all of that and for some of the distractions as well. Okay, so we've had a lot of questions come in. I'm just going to start going down the list here. Thank you, Liz, for collecting all of these. And you can keep them coming in. I will go through this for the next 20 minutes or so. And yeah, if you have any more, just drop them in. So one question is planting or landscaping for desert environments or very big droughts. So these types of strategies of basically, it's the same philosophy as make hay while the sun shines, right? When you have big rains, allow that water to sink in and hydrate soils as much as possible. So there's a really great example of this. Brad Lancaster, who's located in Phoenix, which is about as dry as it gets. He has an organization where they will basically like curb cut and turn those strips, what we call the strip of death, the section between the sidewalk and the road, turn those into giant rain gardens. And they go from being just these like dusty, nothing will ever grow there, into like vibrant food producing fruit trees and all kinds of things. So it's definitely something that can be done, in desert environments for sure. There's another really incredible YouTube video that I highly recommend watching if you've not seen it before, called Greening the Desert, and it's about employing these types of water strategies in desert environments. So I believe that one takes place in Jordan, where Jeff Lawton, who's a permaculture teacher based out of Australia, comes through and he put in all of these like big swales and built polyculture layered ecosystems with trees and shrubs and ground layer plants, and basically took a swath of like very salinated soil desert and turned it into a beautiful, lush, vibrant oasis by using water retention landscaping. So that is exactly what I teach in the class. Another question says, I've built in one small rain garden with good success. Have the neighbors comment that it will encourage mosquitoes? However, I use the Bacillus israelensis as a non-toxic solution. Thoughts for other solutions? So this is a really great question, and one that we get all the time too, especially, we're in the South. It is mosquito heaven here. So rain gardens don't hold water. They're not designed to hold water. So most mosquitoes that breed in larvae need at least 24 to 48 hours of still water in order for the larva to hatch. So rain gardens don't do that. Instead, they're designed to sink the water in. In Atlanta, where we have intense clay soils, I've never seen a rain garden hold water for more than 12 hours. So that's really the thing, is that rain gardens don't hold water long enough in order to attract mosquitoes, in order to be a breeding ground. We do have, here in Atlanta, we have something called the Asian tiger mosquito. I talk all about this in managing mosquitoes naturally, but understanding what type of mosquito you have and where its breeding ground is going to be really helpful in managing mosquitoes in general. And yes, using, there are so many different types of non-toxic solutions that, the Bacillus israelensis, I can never say that right, is one option. There are a lot of different options that I also go into in the course there. The next one, I've seen how Shades of Green reuses chunks of old concrete. I need to repair or replace a damaged driveway. What permeable driveway options do you like for replacement? Any tips for how old concrete should be removed and repurposed? I can imagine purposes like erosion control and shapes or pathways. Cool. Yeah, we're a huge fan of using old chunks of concrete. So the main thing when we bust it up, it depends on what we're going to be doing with it. Sometimes we'll score it with a concrete saw, and then that way we can make like a good flat face. You know, if we're going to be making like a retaining wall or something, that's an example. We also use it for edging. We can use it for like step stones through a path. We use it as patio sometimes, like almost like a flagstone patio, but using pieces of concrete instead that fit together like stone. Sometimes if it's like very crumbly, you'll find when you go to bust up concrete, sometimes it will stay intact and sometimes it just won't. Very easily if it's really old or you didn't have the right, mortar settings, whatever. And if that's the case, a lot of times we'll use that in the base of rain gardens instead of gravel. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. And then in terms of permeable driveway options, that's also a huge, there's a huge variety of things that you can do. Sometimes it depends on your municipality and what they will allow.
All right. So I appreciate y'all for coming by the Garden of Treats. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And this is just a quick intro into permaculture gardening and what we believe and what we want to do to our space and all the other Garden of Treats growth centers. And so check this video out. Let us know what you think, and y'all have a good one.